Hi, everybody. It's Janet Eichhorst and Jill Renee Feeler here for episode 25 of our podcast series. How are you, Jill?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah,
Can I clue everybody into what was just happening?
please do. Please
And
do.
kind of the bigger context. Some people know the kind of regulars that are around us, but so my sister passed on Easter Sunday. Hadn't been sick prior to March 10th, had some distension, kind of swelling in her abdomen, but was working a full shift, went to the ER on a Sunday after working a full shift on Friday, was diagnosed with terminal cancer in her pancreas, liver, and lungs. And she met with the oncologist. She works at UW Hospital and she met with, some of the best oncologists that there are. And they did not disagree with her when she said, I'm not going to fight this. 57-year-old woman, 32-year-old son, 23-year-old daughter, adorable husband of 7 years. Um, so she decided not to fight it. She went straight into hospice. She was in hospice on the Wednesday. I went up on Thursday. I brought my parents, and I was back and forth to Seattle to go visit her consistently for 6 weeks. I was with her when she passed, played a helpful role in assisting her energetically disconnect from the suffering that her body was going through. Her inner child was the last layer that I was connecting, was kind of clinging to its Chris. So it's just been an absolutely shocking 6 weeks in so many ways because no one knew she was sick. It's clear to me she didn't know she was sick either. That's probably debatable, but I don't care and it doesn't matter to me. Um, anyway, so before Janet's known everything that's been going on. And she said, how are you doing? And I was commenting that it was so surreal and divine that we did a double recording the week before she passed, or excuse me, the week before we knew she was sick, the week before she went into hospice. So we recorded on Thursday. Again, she worked a full shift. She was a hard worker, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday kind of person, worked full shift Friday into ER that Sunday, March 9th. And the topic of that last episode that we recorded on Thursday, March 6th, 9876, I think that's right, was grief and independently and individually letting yourself and others grieve in their own ways. And when Janet asked me how I was doing, I'm like, I'm good. I'm good. Getting through this. And I was commenting on the fact that Chris and I both, in our version of just trying to be strong in ways that where we can be strong, we were so annoyed by people that were like, it said it in a sad, how are you? In a super, like, I know it's very presumptuous. And it didn't give us permission and credit to feel as stable, lighthearted, strong as she was living the experience. And me as a sister, and I've only known my life with my older sister, Chris. But there was actually a chaplain, a hospital chaplain that went to visit her on that first visit. And that chaplain had all of that just kind of like, kind of just super sad kind of energy. And Chris was polite with her, but the minute she left, she told the nurses, and she knows some of these people because it's the hospital she worked at. She said, I never want to see that woman again. It was not empowering. It was not uplifting to her. It was not what she wanted or needed in terms of a support system that was supposed to be representing the light of God. So her favorite people in hospice and the energy that I tried to bring to her was just like, how are you? And neutral. How are you doing? I tried to make her laugh, and she didn't miss a chance to make me laugh as often as she could as she was declining. But humor and lightheartedness, and let me let you decide if you want to come back at me with a response of today's a hard day, and losing my shit. But to presume I'm there, I don't know. And maybe I'm weird in that way, and maybe Chris was weird in that way too. But that grief episode was so good. Anyway, so as I started just kind of share the story, Janet said, we just need to start recording. So here we are.
Gosh, because it presents awkward moments for people. I mean, even me, I get in with Jill and I was like, well, how are, am I like, I got, as soon as she said that, I was like, what am I doing with this?
Mm,
Because, and I went all spectrums. I'm like, sometimes it's shitty, sometimes it's good, it's like, because there's this deep desire to honor people that I have. And then there's all these constructs we have that some of them are just effing crap. Like in this situation, you should behave this way. And it's outdated, it's disrespectful, you should feel this way because this thing is happening. And it has nothing to do potentially with reality. And I love what you said about I don't ever want to miss an opportunity to let somebody's God consciousness shine through. And when somebody is close to any sort of edge, under any sort of stress whatsoever, that is such a ripe opportunity to find deeper connections with who we are and love and hilarity and so many things related to that, just living and fullness and full expression.
yeah.
Wow, I just want to breathe some light into that. I just feel even some constriction around it, like around my lungs. I was like, oh no.
And
Oh,
this is retraining for a lot of people. I completely honor that. And I actually get excited about that, right? Because when I have a go to response or action that actually could be upgraded and reconsidered, I get excited. Oh my God, I never thought about that, right? We talked about driver's training when my kids were in that at that age. I did not want to go into it as, oh, I'm supposed to be all dramatic and nervous Nelly. I intentionally didn't want to do the stereotypical way. And it is default for people to assume that someone knowing whatever they know is having the worst day of their life. But what if they're not? And what if by you asking, how are you doing? It's very different. It acknowledges some shitty things are going on in their life, but it does not presume where they are in that moment. And sometimes the way you ask it, and I don't want to put pressure on anybody. I don't want anyone to feel like, oh my God, I don't want to say it wrong next time. Please allow yourself to not interpret it as judgment. But there's huge opportunity to think it another way. How are you doing? You tell me where you're at right now in this moment with me, because you may have been falling apart with somebody 5 minutes ago that's super close to the situation. But if I can be and kind of an outsider looking in, how are you doing? Concerned but inquiring, not presuming, not assuming. You may give that person a chance to go, I'm actually doing better today. They may not have been able to say that to anyone else they interacted with today.
it's so true. And there's a theme I have, and it's been so helpful. And this very much demonstrates that where there's old way of being, new possibilities, and because the energetics are still shifting very, very rapidly, very, very, very rapidly. And for me, what that means is I want to take an extra millisecond or 2 seconds or however long I need before I express something. Because there's different choices here. And I want to pick that choice that's most in alignment of the best version of me, which can get upgraded millisecond to millisecond. I mean, quite literally is the way I'm experiencing life right now. And this is that same thing where asking, really honoring the experience of someone else and my experience and being honest about that, like all of it. Like when I asked you that, I was like, oh, I'm slightly uncomfortable here because I'm not sure how to ask this. And I felt that inside of myself.
Did you?
I did. I was like, oh, 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 what do what do I do? And I remember I kind of, botched this, I'll say in a non-judgmental way, but a friend of mine had broken up with somebody that she was with. And I thought like the thing to do was express compassion in the way that "I'm so sorry." And I didn't feel it, but
Mhm.
my thought process was, "This is what you do in that situation."
Yeah.
And then she's like, "Oh my god, it was the best thing ever." Like, she was so
Yes, exactly.
it
The perfect
really got
example. "So how are you doing?" And she would've gone, "Great. I should have done this years ago." Right? It gives her a chance to finally be more authentic with somebody
yeah,
else that may actually get it because they're not presuming
yeah,
those condolences are in order.
yes. I mean,
It's
this
good.
all it all boils down to more light, more God, more light, more
Please.
godliness.
Yeah.
And with people that we love that dearly,
Mm.
I mean, those are the precious moments with anybody I get to have,
Mhm.
whether it's grocery store person or people I've known my entire life, and to have expansive moments in
Mm,
those last however few you get, and we never know that, right? That's kinda
mhm,
you know, in this giant video game of life, those are the things that we don't we're generally not very privy. Some people know beyond a certain I mean, they just know when they're going, and most people, it's like, "Yeah, we don't know." I would love to hear if this is the time and place, and if you're open to sharing about it really caught my attention that her inner child was the last to go. I just wanna, like, even take a breath even before we start here, because I
yes.
just wanna honor what sacred territory this is, and I really
Mhm.
wanna honor your sister.
Mm,
I
yeah,
really wanna honor her, I wanna celebrate her and just bless her, for her run here,
mm,
and I hope it was everything she wanted it to be and more.
me too. I hope so too. If not, I think we came pretty damn close. Yeah, yeah, let's take a breath, though, I love that.
Yeah, yeah.
So I never know where to start with stories, and, sometimes I feel like I make a story longer than it needs to, but there was a point in her in her she was definitely at a more severe state when I came from the hotel to their house that morning. Her husband was there, her 23-year-old daughter was there, and then my daughter was actually staying there as well, but she was still asleep. It was still like 8:30 in the morning. But Chris was moaning with each breath, very low level of presence in terms of being with us. I could see her when she would open her eyes and see me, and I definitely saw a lot of discomfort. With hospice, there's a lot of supply of pain medication there, and we were always wanting to stay ahead of the pain, but not, we were very cognizant of not overdoing it. We just all felt kind of an ethical responsibility for giving her what she needed. But I'm sure some families are like, just give it all to him, let it, get it over with. We didn't do that. I don't think any of the four of us would have been comfortable doing that. Anyway, so we were giving her what the hospice recommended. If it gets more serious, then do this level of the morphine or the Dilaudid or whatever. Um, but there was a lot of discomfort, a lot of labored breathing, and the moaning with every breath had started about 1 a.m. So 7 hours prior. And it was really, really hard on her husband. He was up with her that night, and you could just feel David's urgency and a sense of helplessness of like, we got to help her. Like this is bad, right? So as we started to kind of assess, okay, how much more pain medication can we give her? Okay, yeah, it is to that part, where we can give her more than before because it's getting worse, and she's still very uncomfortable / in pain. So we went through some of the first steps, and then I just started trusting my intuition. Um, and I felt her inner child layer was the one that was still in there, kind of hanging on. But I felt like the majority of what we know as Chris, as her soulfulness, was already freed, if you will, from the body. And I mentioned that. Well, I should say I offered that. I offered that as something I can't prove. I feel like Chris actually, the majority of Chris that we know is not in this pain. And I felt her daughter, sigh relief, and I felt her husband. He's so sweet, and I love his questions. He's like, "Well, then who's in there?" It was kind of cute. It was like, "Oh, okay." I forget like when I say something, what questions it prompts in people. I'm like, "Oh, okay, hang on." It's just enough energy to keep Chris, going, but it's having a hard time releasing itself from the system that we know as Chris. But he goes, "Okay." So he was relieved. I was relieved when I felt that intuition that she's, because I was like, "How are you doing?" intuitively. And I felt her say, "I'm not in there." And I was like, "Okay." So then I felt her right next to me, kind of witnessing what her physicality was going through. And I was relieved. Oh, thank God. Okay. So let's still help this Chris, but let's know and be thankful that she's not experiencing all of this. Um, so that last little part, I felt its inner child energy. And I felt like it was kind of the first part of the soulfulness that had joined the Chris at birth, at or conception, whenever it connected with the Chris that we know in the stages of physical life and humanness. That it was like, no, this is my Chris. I'm assigned to her. Like I can't leave her. like a service person. I can't. I'm assigned to this one. I can't leave. I'm like, oh, but it's over now. This is the part where we get to allow her pain and suffering to end, and we get to be so grateful for the role that you played in this, Chris. But let's help you feel like that role has ended for you so that we can let her be free of this. So that was probably another 30 to 35 minutes of helping the inner child attachment, if you will, loving, service oriented attachment go, okay, I guess you're right. It's time to go. And I almost felt like I was reaching like into, instead of a tree fort, like a ground fort. I felt like I was reaching and there was a ladder and I was reaching out a hand going, okay, come on out. I promise you it's okay. I just felt so reassuring of it and it's okay. And then I felt, so that was, to me, that was the last part. And then her nervous system needed some shushing, I would say. And she had a very strong brain. And I felt the brain's stubbornness connected to kind of the root chakra layers as well. So I just kind of was helping the breathing system, just literally all just energy work. Just I was almost like you kind of are patting something, and I was patting it rhythmically, and then I slowed it down, like, shh, it's okay, let's let her go, and just really reassuring, super comforting. And that all of that process started about 8:30, and then she stopped the moaning around 9:10, and her last breath was at 9:20 a.m. I'm so happy for her that hard, uncomfortable part was as brief as it was, and in retrospect, yeah. Mm.
Mm. Wow, and how was that for your Jill?
I didn't feel like my Jill. I didn't feel like Chris's sister Jill in that moment. I felt like my soulful presence being very dedicated to assisting and being experimental. And what if I try this? And what if I try that? This is more shamanic and I don't know that part, but I can try that part. Let's see if this works. So I felt highly experimental. I felt calm. I felt very led. There was not a moment in my Jill where I was like, "I have no idea what to do." That was not where I was at. I was like, "I'm gonna try this, and then I'll try that, and we'll just keep coming up with new things to try as long as we need to help this beautiful being not suffer like this."
I just wanna, encourage everybody to receive this as kind of a template for what we can do and how we can be in really challenging situations. Because what it demonstrates is there's always, I wanna say, more support, there's always guidance. And it's such a beautiful example how you got out of your own way, whatever that means. And I know you were very practiced at this, and that helps. And that's how we build muscles in this body, right? As human beings. And I know there's been two people, just two, maybe? I don't know. That might not be accurate, but that I was with when they passed or right before they passed. And it's fascinating how reality is different. And because the same thing happens when people come in, like whatever way they're going, whether they're coming or going, there's like a thinning of the veils, I want to say. And it's such a sacred, profound moment. And I was wondering if you had that sense too. Like, just was that like your Jill not being here kind of feeling?
Yeah, it was so beautiful, and it was really affirming, to have the hospice nurse when we called them after she'd passed, because that's what we were told to do. Then you don't call 911, you call hospice, and then their services kick in for that part. So she got there probably within an hour, and she did the formal pronouncement of her passing. And David and I and Cameron were sitting on the couch. I think Georgia was awake at that point and sitting with us. And she was on the other side of Chris, and Chris's hospital bed is, still in the middle of the living room, where she was for those last weeks. And the hospice nurse said, "Well, clearly she passed peacefully." And I was like, "Really?" Because she was the professional. She'd done this so many times. I'm like, "Really?" And she goes, "Yeah, look at her." And she said her entire body, I mean, her face, David had placed her arms kind of, where her hands were on top of another, but her entire body was just, there was no contortion. She was literally, and I hadn't thought about the other spectrum of how that could have looked to a hospice nurse showing up for that official pronouncement of the other options. I was like, oh God, it was just such that I definitely felt my Jill in that part, just such relief at a professional saying that. Um, yeah.
I think I shared this before, but it's coming up, so I wanna share it again because when my friend passed, and I wasn't there right when she went, because she was the one that was fighting with God, if people have listened to our previous podcast, and she didn't wanna go. So she waited for everybody to go, and then she left, and then, her husband called me, like, an hour later. I mean, it wasn't long because she couldn't do it any longer. Her body was just so gone. But there was that moment when I came back and she was just glowing.
Mm,
And she obviously wasn't, her body, she wasn't breathing any longer, but that glow was so unmistakable,
yeah.
and that was such a huge gift for me to witness that.
Mm,
I mean,
so
wow, and it didn't last, it was just long enough, right?
a little glimmer. So beautiful.
And her husband didn't even notice it. I was like I walk in and I was like, "Holy God." I mean,
Yeah.
literally, "Holy God."
Mm,
And I'm like, "Roy, look at her." And it was that inner illumination. So
mm,
I don't know what that phase is, and I felt so the whole thing about no veils and just being
mhm.
present in those moments, and, I hadn't slept for God knows, I mean, that I shouldn't have been able to be as present seemingly as I was, but I was, like, fully there,
Yeah.
right?
Luckily, our
Yeah.
transcendence is not sleep dependent and nutrition
It
dependent and
it
all of
isn't,
those
and that
things.
also is a very good reminder here, that it is not. And that kind of getting out of our own way and that surrenderance to and we're surrendering to us, right? We're not surrendering to anybody else. It's
Mm,
within us and what we believe that life force energy God is, whatever you wanna call it.
yeah. The sacredness of it for me, I mean, I felt busy. I felt occupied, right? In assisting. My eyes were closed. My eyes are closed a lot when I'm doing that kind of work. Um, David, her husband, his eyes were open. They were staring at her. So David was on one, I was towards her feet. David was on her right side, or by her right hand. And Cameron, her daughter, was facing her on her other side, on her at her left hand. So they were able to describe to me, and David in particular, just how beautiful it was. Because they both were so relieved as they could see that something was working, that she was relaxing, that her the moaning had stopped, and she and apparently David said it was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen was when she finally let go. And I mean, he's very open to the concept of spirit and metaphysical and those sorts of things in his way. So to him, it was very beautiful and very sacred, her letting go. And of course, then there's the reality of, oh, she's gone, you know what I mean, sort of thing. And it's such a mixture. Um, but I just remember going in the kitchen once we, used the pulse ox on her finger to because I wanted the verification. I was staring at her chest once my eyes did open because I could feel them moving. I could feel David and Cameron both get up, and I was like, "Oh, okay. Is it? Is she passed now?" So they put the pulse ox thing, and it wasn't. It was flatlining, and I said, "No, did you click the button?" And David just looked at me like, "Jill, she's gone." I was like, "We did it. She's free." So I let them have a moment. I went in the kitchen and I was just inviting Chris with me, right? Because I already felt like she was next to me through a lot of that process that I was doing. So I went in the kitchen. I was like, Easter effing, and I said it, Easter fucking Sunday. I'm like, wow. I'm like, that's pretty badass. That's pretty badass, Chris, And then David came in and I felt his lightheartedness and relief that she was no longer in pain and that um, everything this was the part we were afraid of. We knew it was going to happen. When is it going to happen? How is it going to happen? Is it going to be okay? Are we going to be whatever is needed? Are we going to be all right as this is happening? And I was just so relieved that we made it through what was the scariest part to us, and that all the unknowns and the stress of when and how and all these things, it was sort of like that's those chapters were then written for us. And I just felt so much relief for her and for us because it was so hard to watch her declining.
I think that to this day, one of the most challenging things, and I think I've shared this before too, when I watch my friend basically become emaciated from cancer and
Mm,
to hold her eye contact as I talked with her.
mm,
And that does take I mean, that's where man, if I wanna dig deep at any time, that's a really good time to dig deep, man. This is a human being here
yeah.
that's in one of the most challenging situations that she did not wanna be in at that moment,
Mm,
and I got to be present, and I was changed. We go through these moments, and we can't not be changed by it, and there's people that take different paths with that, and it's kinda like, "Well, which one do I wanna take?" You know? And I know what the answer to that is no matter how uncomfortable I am.
mm,
Presence. I always pick presence. More God, more love, more of me, and in that real service, more of being there for other, seemingly other, really, because there is something that happens in those moments where when that God consciousness is so strong, I don't feel separation. It's sort of like just a dance in a flow of life is what
Mhm.
it feels like being. And that's why the guidance is so strong to me because that's what it feels like,
Yeah.
because I'm not my little self.
There you go. That I love how you said that because I know from my experience there was a lot of information available from the context of the situation and maybe my allowing an intuitive flow of information of, well, it looks like this might be going on. It looks like that might be going on. It looks like her nervous system might be having a hard time sort of unplugging from the Chris system as well. So I just kept receiving, if you will, that flow of information and utilizing it to assist. Well, I wonder if this would help. I wonder if that would help. In a very nonverbal, non-vocal way. I wasn't saying it out loud, but um,
Mm.
I would just relate it to what you're saying, just to really encourage people with anything you've never faced before that is serious enough that you know it warrants some sort of a transcendent version of you to offer the situation. It can be really hard for the brain to trust. I've that's one of the things, Jen, that I think we both do so well is assist people in, like you said before, getting out of our own way. For a lot of us, that is our brain. Our brain is so connected to, well, I've never read this before. I didn't have training for this. I haven't experienced this enough. I've never done this before. The brain can literally freak out, constrict, and constrain our ability to be present in ourselves, in the light of source that we are, in a way that defies experience, denies education. Our transcendent isn't based on that. And some people say, well, you must have done that in another life. Why? Why can't I, as a soul, have just made myself available to whatever I needed in any situation, especially when it's on behalf of somebody else?
Wow. Oh, wow. Woo. Infiniteness. That word has been talked about by so many people in so many ways. But this is what that looks like in action.
Yeah.
And everybody is capable of this. And if you don't believe that, that belief can be changed. That is how we can use our minds in a positive way to get rid of, release the restrictions, the glass ceilings, and it's not a level of naivete because it's a actual practice because we're actually doing it. It's not an idea. It's not theoretical. And those moments, especially the seriousness of those moments, really open up that door and present that opportunity. And that's true however tough it is. I mean, some people, it could be a really simple thing. You show up and, meet your in laws for the first time. And you may have that because of your patterning or whatever you've gone through. You may have that same level of seriousness. And it feels like life or death sometimes. And that's not to dismiss the actual life or death process, but we literally go through versions of ourselves dying all the time. And when we leave the body, there's just a lot of them that need to be covered, you know? And that's really beautiful because in the work that I do, there's so much mind, neurological system, cellular, DNA restructuring, and that can happen in so many different ways. So it's beautiful to hear you share that direct experience of working with those systems in that, I want to say, pure unconditional love space. And that's what happens, especially when we love people so dearly. And, you know, dying and birthing is sacred. It's very sacred coming in and out of these realities and how that works. And then we get all the micro moments of that all the time in our lives.
Yeah, I agree every day. I mean, there's a opportunity to kind of go off script. And it doesn't have to be somebody that you love passing. It can be literally anything where you want a new story, a new ending, and a new script for you, right? So I know if anybody experiencing this, if your brain is like, well, how? They haven't told us how. By experimenting, by trying something new, by being curious. And I would pick something hard. If there's a certain relationship where you're like, okay, now I know exactly what's going to happen. They're going to ask me this or they're going to do that. And then I'm going to get frustrated or pissed or impatient. And then I'm going to do this. That's the part where I want you to get out the magic eraser. Don't do that. What else can I do? Okay, here's this predictable part. Oh, here's the next predictable part. Okay, where's my wild card moment? What do I want to try that's different than I've ever tried before? You have so many possibilities. And if your brain says, well, I don't know what to do anything different than what you normally do,
Mm.
right? Try anything different. Be highly experimental. To me, this is such a fundamental part of what makes me excited about being human. Because I have predictable ways of being less than a Jill that I like being in a whole bunch of different parts of my life, from not getting up and going to the gym when part of me thinks I should and would be better if I did, right? There's endless opportunities for us to create a new story for ourselves on a daily basis, on a yearly basis, on a life basis. That, to me, that's what makes it fun. And it doesn't have to be hard. It can be simple things like not letting people push your buttons like they used to.
I want to add something here that's been in a lot of my conversations recently. So I want to share it because yeah, it's helped. The conversations have helped with the people I've had them with. So there's this gap. We've talked about the gap before, and I want to emphasize it here about oh, this is so crazy, and there's so much energy here right now. I just have to laugh. It's about how skilled I am and how well I'm doing and what my mind's telling me. And I know we talked about this probably in the last one, but this in the last podcast, but this is even I want to say more relevant now today in this moment. I mean, my friend, I was dying laughing, literally. She was talking about some of the work that we've done. And then we hear, and this is no judgment, and I'm going to share this anyway, and it's not about ego either. So please, I hope that you take it how you take it, but I'm just putting that out there as a disclaimer ahead of time. We were talking about some of the work that we've done, and then I'll listen or hear how somebody else does work. And I was like, oh, I thought there was some magic bullet in that. And this isn't about other people being less than. It's about me owning who I am because I see that the things that I've done have been absolutely brilliant in that hadn't been possible here literally in this reality until it happened in that moment when I did it. And there's part of me that just can't seem to keep that active in my mind. It kind of freaks me out and I kind of promptly forget about it, right? So we were talking about these moments when we've had this happen and she's going off and she's like, "It's going on for all of us." And she's naming some people we know and she's like, "If we're not careful, we're going to die first." Like without really doing these things that we really want to do here and having these experiences we really want to have here. And I
Mm,
just started cracking up because the truth of it, it was so true. And I
mm,
had no judgment in it. But when somebody recognizes that level of truth, I'm like, bingo, that's right. And
yeah.
so that has to do with allowing myself to be uncomfortable There's a sphere of comfortability, and sometimes I don't wanna step out of that because that mind wants to keep me in comfortability.
Yeah.
And so those, trying new things and, "No, I don't wanna die before I get to do this really cool thing," which is the funnest thing ever and helps
Yeah.
shape reality in a beautiful new way. It's like, "No, I don't wanna croak before that happens." I don't. I really
Yeah.
wanna experiment, and try new things and not be so attached to anything. Because really, we've talked about this too,
Mhm.
guruism is gone. What is here is our individuality and the way that we do things in a unique way, which you just did with your sister's passing.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna I love it when I instead of say well, I don't love it. I'm laughing at myself that instead of saying I'm going to, I say I'm gonna. And it's funny. Chris would be laughing with me right now because it's like Sesame Street. Da da na 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 ha ha na da da ha ma na ma na. Right? So hamana, also known as I'm going to. Do 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 do. Na na na.
Oh
Yep.
gosh,
Thanks,
classic
Chris.
Sesame Street.
I felt the Christmas in that. Um, I'm going to try and give this next idea that I'm wanting to offer us the credit with really good words, but I don't know how it's gonna come out, but I'm gonna do my best. It's so on theme for everything we talk about, Janet, and everything you just said. For a lot of individuals that want to be able to show up in for themselves and in this world and for a loved one that's passing in a, I want to use the word supernatural way, right? They use their brain a lot to try to research, okay, who am I? I need to know what lives I've had. I need to know what my gifts are. I need to get readings and I need to get training and I need to have DNA activations and all those things so that I can give myself the permission and the energy and the ceremonies I need so that I can show up as more than my humanness, right? And I've noticed a pattern that individuals that try to do that
Yeah.
are using their brain in a way that even when they want to show up the most super godly, naturally God, right? Their brain never says, okay, now you're ready.
Mhm.
Their brain, because of the way they're using it as a very human oriented system, and they're seeking practitioners that are also very, I want to say, earthbound, right? And well, I can do that. And it may be that their practitioner, their teachers are saying things like, well, I can do this because I've had this lifetime and I have that, genetic lineage. And they're making it very earthbound. And
Yeah.
all of that is limiting because my truth is anyone, no matter what they know and not knowing anything, can show up in a supremely godly way. When you allow yourself that God energy to not take you over, but become so one with you, you don't know the difference. You are letting your brain even go, that was a good idea. Yes, let's do that. Let's chant and do this over Chris's body and go, ma, 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 ma. My brain as my Jill. Didn't know that, didn't study that, but I let my brain be open to an idea that somehow possibly played one of the secret sauces that were available for someone I love so much that was in great suffering,
Mm.
right? There is zero doubt in any layer of my Jill that all of us have the capacity, the ability to be more than you think you can be, with amazing insights in, well, what if I did this? What if I did that? What if? Well, my brother-in-law is there, my sister, my niece is there, my sister's there. I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, that's a sweet little Jill. I'm going to keep right under my left arm. I know, hon, I know you don't know what you're doing, and I know you don't know what to do, but you know what? This is really important. We're going to try everything like we know exactly what we're doing because it can't make this worse. That's our cost benefit ratio. You're afraid of doing it wrong. You're afraid of letting Chris down. You're afraid of letting David down and Cameron down. And I love you for that, but I'm not going to let you run the show. So you got to be right here next to me, and I'm just going to love you through it. Well, I do maybe weird looking things that I've never done before either. But what if it works?
And I think what you said about in those states, there is no difference between me and God. There really isn't. And everybody's capable of that. And I
Yes.
think that kind of the emphasis I want to put on that, it's the most natural state that we have.
Yes.
It
Yes.
it's not about trying to be anything but who you are. It's so organic and so pure and so uniquely your version of yourself in its empowered way. And that is always trustworthy. And that's where our society has flipped that switch in the programming that that's not. And everybody has a version of that. And the other thing I just want to give a big hug to and a ton of compassion for everybody. There's a form of less than that I don't know anybody that hasn't experienced that.
Mm.
And I think that's what's getting revealed, alchemized, identified so that it can be transcended. there's there's a squeaky wheel that just went by behind me, some vehicle. Isn't that funny? The squeaky wheel just came by and Gracie's like,
I love how Gracie, and also on topic of, we're just gonna let that, doubt, insecure, we're just gonna chew it out. Like, you come here, you self-doubt. You come here, you you self-limiting, dimensional ranges of self. Just
oh,
gonna chew
oh
you
my
out.
gosh. Oh, so can we just take a moment and just, everybody has accessible in this moment, whatever will kind of soften,
Mm.
I want to say, that self doubt and allow it to kind of melt into who you truly are. And I see it almost just like an ice cube melting, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not necessary, however it got created, it doesn't have to be there. Not like it was.
Mm.
Because that's that part that you're talking about that used to run the show, right? And this is the deep returning to our wholeness. That's what this is. Wow. And there's so much energy here. There's so much energy here to melt that for you to the degree that's perfect in this moment for you.
Yeah.
And whenever you listen to this, and to kind of set that cycle in motion, because I absolutely positively believe in kindness and compassion, that these things don't get transcended so fast that it's hard. It's like, no, it's more love and compassion and grace. It's the essence of that. And just let that kind of sink into your body. like all the way into your lower chakra systems, right? Your whole body, because we've held so much of that survival mechanism stuff in the lower, the doubt, that's where a lot of the doubt lives, right? In that survival, oh my God, I'm not gonna make it. What do I have to do? Who do I have to give up? What part of myself do I have to give up to be here now? It's like, no,
I
none
can't
of
do
it.
this. I need to go to I need to go to and have this experience, and I need to pay for that activation. And I don't know, is my 12th strand DNA really, there's just so many um I want to say machinations, is that the right word? That
Yeah.
people can just really get stuck in. And I just want them to let those ideas go. What if they, whatever you think those are for you, are still number one, what if they're not needed at all? What if they're beneficial, but they won't get you to the part of you trusting what you had all along? Like Dorothy with the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, so any distraction, just allow yourself to kind of evaluate what's a distraction and
Mhm.
what's not.
What do you feel like you need that you may not need? What what stories are you telling yourself for why you aren't ready, or need more time, or need more training, or need more teachings, or need more practice, whatever. And that's fine if you want all that. It's totally, you can spend lifetimes
Mhm.
literally getting more and more experience and more this and more that. I would just ask you, at what point in any lifetime are you going to let yourself let go of the limitation and let the brain come to the side while you let amazing ideas for what you've always been and can be right now be real in your actions,
Mhm.
in the present?
Yeah, I've had just this came up in the last probably 24, 48 hours, but I'm feeling like there's a call or yeah, you can call it a call to action, but it's more about we are this, so let's implement it. It's more like it's take that action now.
Mhm,
And it's not in a forceful way. It's sort of like me calling myself forward,
mhm.
you know, in a very timely way, or God calling myself forward, or just noticing that the environment is ripe for this to happen now.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's gonna be, so just check and see if that's true for you. Like, what is it? Like, you don't have to not act anymore. Like, you got enough. You got what you need, you know? And you still might be inspired to listen to this or do this, but that's not the thing. The thing is this, and that's giving you maybe another idea, but it's not about doing the thing, it's about being who you are and allowing that to awaken something within you who you are, already are, and allowing that to be more conscious and usable.
And again, the how, if anyone's brain is saying, but how? By being it. Just be it. But I don't know how. Then you're not being it. You're not letting yourself be it.
Yeah, and that's where breath work, that's where movement, that's where make a list of things you wanna do and do it anyway, no matter how you feel. And I'm not saying as a form of avoidance, but these are things and trying something new that you mentioned before, that's very effective. Drive a different way to the grocery store.
Be something new. Be something new. I'm not as so I thank you so much for mentioning breath work and movement and that kind of stuff, because I don't really do that.
Mm,
Mine isn't that practiced,
mm,
but I just don't let myself get in my way.
Yeah.
right? And that doesn't mean I'm perfect because I'm so not. I mean, if there were a camera following me around, you guys be going, disappointed, very disappointed, Jill. You know, wow, wow, really? You know, you got impatient. Not the, why? You were driving. So what? You know what I mean? I have opinions about a lot of things, right? Um, just be it. If you have a practice, if you like practices like you were talking about, Janet,
Yeah.
that's great. Just please don't let that become the mission it at the I don't want to say at the expense of, but at the risk of not being the transcendence in moments and in experiences of your life, big or small,
Yeah.
where you just want to go off script and be something absolutely amazing.
Yeah, these ideas are kind of to short circuit the stuckness. Do you know? Because sometimes, like, I can't make myself be necessarily. I can breathe into more of me and I can drop in, that I can do, and sometimes my mind is so intricately connected into these old patterns,
Yeah.
it's the action that breaks it up. But it's not the action itself, it's just like, no, it's newness,
Mhm.
it is that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just overriding the old program is
Mhm.
what it is. And so there's all kinds of tricks. So, we
So
throw out
many tricks.
we
Yes.
we we throw out these things, and I know I've shared this before, this is maybe my last one today because 'cause we're kinda getting to time here.
Okay.
Um, if if I knew how to,
Hmm.
what would I do?
That's a
And
good
it's such a good trick because when I do that, I do know what action or who I am, or I do know, and I do have that within me,
one.
but it short circuits the brain. Beautiful. Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, everybody. Is there anything else you wanted to add before I'm starting to wrap here? But
No, that's good. I just wanted to say thank you so much, Janet, for allowing me the space to kind of share some of what happened. I'm sure I could talk for hours about it in minute detail, and to some that may be interesting, and to some it wouldn't. But what a powerful demonstration I got to live through of getting out of my Jill way and letting something very important for someone I love very much um, be of service,
mm.
literally, to her.
Yeah, I really appreciate your willingness to share it because it is a different form of a operating system, of a template, of a inspirational, "Oh my gosh, look what Jill did. Let me put that in the back of my mind, and when I'm in a situation like that, let me remember what's available to me
Mm,
in a way of being." And so it's very powerful, and, I appreciate you sharing.
thank you.
And I
Thank
just
you.
I just love your sister. I don't, it's like, "Thank you,
Oh,
Chris." You know?
oh, you'd love Chris, and Chris. I mean, you guys didn't meet, but I know
Mm,
you guys know each other.
yeah.
She's really amazing.
She's phenomenal, and she's very excited about what's going on right now. She's got some, I can just feel her.
She's
It's
so
like
amazing.
it's like she was here, and now she's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's very strong. Wow."
She was little. She was 5 feet 2, and I'm 5'10". And I remember that, and I know we're wrapping up, but when she first got the diagnosis, she was first in hospice. I was already open to the idea of a more metaphysical and non-physical interaction with she and I. So it was that first week where I was sort of like, "Are you here? Like, can you play with me here? I'm in Boise today, obviously." And her walking down the hallway at my house with me, and I'm like, "You look big," and she's like, "I'm as big as I could be, as big as I want to be in this way," and I'm like, "I love it."
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. Yes, please comment. We love your comments. They are encouraging. They help inspire us. They bring in other ideas. So share, like, and just thank you for listening and watching.
Mm. Thanks, everybody.
All right.